Hey everyone, YouTube, it's Giles here. How are you guys doing? I hope you're doing well. I'm making a video a lot sooner than I intended. I try and stagger it a little bit because I can talk until the cows come home. But you can't listen until the cows come home. So I do try and pace it a little bit. But this is one that, like, I had this on my mind like the morning after the previous video. So I left it 24 hours to ferment, but I have to get it out before the brewery explodes, you know? I previously tried to record this video and I wanted both names of the people that I'm talking about in this video to remain anonymous. But it's really hard when you don't come up with fake names for them, so that's what we're going to do. I want to talk about the concept of bullying and the relationship, or my experience growing up with bullying. But I want to start with what inspired this video. So we've got the reason why I don't want to mention these users directly is for various reasons. My channel is growing and I enjoy that, and it's great, but I like it growing at this natural pace, because I think, when you think about, garnering more attention and stuff like that, your ability to handle what that may bring grows with the channel. And I feel like mentioning one of these people who's a particularly large YouTuber, and I'm going to be quite critical about him, and I think that could garner attention that I'm just not prepared for, So we're going to call him Jim. We'll call him Jim. So Jim is the YouTuber, and there's a TikToker. We'll call him Tigger. So Tigger and Jim. Tigger is, how do we describe Tigger? He is non-binary. He makes 20 to 30 TikTok videos a day. The particular way in which he expresses his non-binary is not terribly flattering to people who are non-binary. I'll put it that way. He often appears sort of in bikinis talking about sports scores or stuff to do with sports, or he makes videos about Jim, because Jim has made a video talking about Tigger before. Jim has made 2, in fact, and the other day I watched his third. Now, in his third video, he says he's making this video because, Tigger won't stop talking about him in his TikTok videos. The thing that concerns me, this TikTok guy, Tigger, he's there's some very serious obsessive issues there. He also doesn't believe, just to throw on the pile of his resume, if you were, he also doesn't believe in Australia, which thickens the plot somewhat, as Jim is Australian. And Jim is a particularly right-wing guy. He's quite like me myself. I don't like the wing game, as it were. I wouldn't say I think that the term centrist kind of gets blurred around the edges, because I've never known whether to say that, because I think there's some things that I would say I'm right-wing about, and there's some things I'd say I'm left-wing about. So I have a hard time saying, no, I'm in the middle, because sometimes I think, no, that person on the right is right, that person on the left is right. I tend to I tend to more sort of weigh out what I actually think, which is one of my chief criticisms about left and right YouTubers. But Jim is a right winger, and we all know that they don't get along with the non-binary types, especially the more extreme non-binary types. Like I said, I think there's a way in which you could describe non-binary behaviours seen online as not particularly being a good ambassador for the lifestyle, and but the thing that concerns me, of course, about this situation is that Tigger, there's a huge case for autism there, a huge case, and you've got this conservative right winger with this massive audience boring down on him, and you can't entirely say that Tigger isn't getting what he wants, because he's reacting to it. You know, he gets a video like that from this huge YouTuber, and he reacts to that attention. And he'll be talking about it in a video for God knows how long. You know, like I said, he makes like 20, 30 videos a day. He does not stop rabbiting. And so it's such a weird situation. But the whole time I'm watching this Jim's YouTube video, I'm thinking, like, aren't you at any point, because he's an intelligent fella, he's not an idiot, and I'm like, aren't you at any point, with your massive influence, aren't you at any point going to suggest this bloke gets help? You know, I'm just like, with your like enormous audience, huge influence, you made 3 videos about this guy, and we all know what happens when you've got like over 1 million subscribers and you make a video slamming someone. What the hell do you think is going to happen? And if that person is already circling the drain, as what the fuck do you think it's going to do to them? You know, it's like I said, like when you look at like extreme lifestyles, and I would classify this as extreme, not because I classify non-binary as an extreme, but I think any lifestyle that you could assert there's an extreme way of living it, you know. And I think a lot of it can pertain to attention and the desire thereof, and that doesn't mean that they are not what they say they are. It means they're overstating it for issues that need to be discovered or rifled through or uncovered or whatever. And I think a lack of answers can cause this. I think you know, this is why it isn't that it isn't my place to sort of say, oh, that guy looks really autistic, but it's just, well, I mean, it's borderline textbook, you know, and even if you can't spot it, and even if that's not the problem, how can you just see someone behaving that way and think that the morally correct thing to do is just slam them? You know, I don't, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, you know. It doesn't, and the thing is, I'm not entirely going after this Jim, the YouTuber, because I like a lot of his videos and I like a lot of the points he makes. I just thought this was really messed up. And you know, in his comment section, it's just like acid. You know, it's just. But I didn't even take a look at the TikTokers comment sections, or attention he's gotten for that. I don't think I'd be able to handle it, to be honest. I was like, man, if Jim's actual comment section is this rough, like, I can't imagine what Tigger's would be like. But I don't know. I just you know, it got me thinking about the subject of bullying, and you know, I have a weird sort of philosophy about bullying, in that I don't typically blame bullies for bullying, because often they're bullied themselves. It's how it happens, you know, or they're ignored, or you know, what have you. And so I think about this YouTuber, and when he does something like that, you start to see the cracks in him, you know, like the sort of the issues with his demeanor, the issues with the way he talks, the way he asserts himself. It's like they accidentally expose themselves as an incredibly fractured and possibly ill human being. And I think that about a lot of things, you know. And the thing is, I think it's fair to say that we can all think that about ourselves from time to time. You know, you say something or you do something extremely untoward that you look back at, and there's two ways to handle it when you've said or done something horrible. And you know, the first way is to sort of own up to it, and that puts you on the path of wondering why it happened, and addressing what might have knocked you out of shape. But then there's the other way to get around it, which is pure blunt force ignorance. And this is where dickheads come from, you know, because it's that sort of hell-bent denial of one's shortcomings in terms of their demeanour and conduct. I'm a big believer in conduct. Like I always say, like, one of my mottos is that conduct will have the final say in beauty. Like, always. There is no discussion there. It doesn't matter what you look like, what shape you are, all the rest of it. Your conduct is all. It is everything. Conduct changes how you appear. This is how, like, some of the most beautiful people in the world get called ugly. And it's not because they are ugly aesthetically, it's because the way they behave literally, physically changes how they appear. You know, like if you can see a very beautiful person, and the second they say, I don't know, they say something nasty, something racist, something bigoted, you start to just, it's human nature that you will suddenly notice imperfections about their appearance. You know, it's a weird way the human mind works. It's like when an overweight person pisses you off and you call them a fat bastard. That's not because you hate fat people, but it's because you're annoyed, and so you're visually gonna focus on something to add and embellish your insults because you want to insult. You're annoyed with this person and you want to cause some damage, you know. But it's funny because, you know, it gets me thinking about the subject of bullying, and you know, and we've been talking so much about this about autism on this channel, and it made me sort of sent me back in time to when I was at school and bullying and stuff like that. And I got to admit, I think I was a little bit lucky in that I sometimes worry that well, not worry, that's the wrong word. I wonder if my, you know, as you guys know, I'm in the process of being diagnosed with autism. And I've sort of wondered if it had ironically kept me safe in some way, because instead of you know, I did encounter bullies, although again I don't really like the term bully. I think someone can bully, someone can be bullied, but I don't think someone can actually be a bully, you know. But you know, I sort of, I was bullied a little bit, but I think not only was I not bullied as much because people didn't quite know what to make of me, they didn't get reactions out of that well out of me either, because I didn't react that much, because I didn't know what to make of them. You know? It's like, you know, people would like pick on me for, I often say this, like I got picked on by the guys for the way I talked. I got picked on by the girls for the way I dressed. It's kind of weird, because the guys would call me like posh or like a toff because of the way I talk. But the girls would go after like my hair being messy, or like what, you know, the way I dressed and stuff like that. Like, so the guys would assert that I was some rich kid, but the girls would call me a tramp, and so it was kind of weird like that, and like they just couldn't come to an agreement. But so what they neither realised is that I wasn't concerned about either. You know, like as soon as I'm sitting down in the school, like, you know, like I had a lot of fun at school. I won't lie, I had a lot of fun at school. It had nothing to do with school, but I had a lot of fun at school because I made my own fun. You know, I'd be sitting there in like maths or science or whatever. I'm just staring out the window. Just the epic cinema that is my brain is just playing movies. You know, entertaining myself. I remember we used to. Where we used to walk to school, there was like a park adjacent to the road we used to walk down. Not park, a forest. There is a difference. But we used to just hang out in that forest. I remember there was like a stream. I mentioned this a couple of times. Actually, I could go there, you know, in a video. It's just around the corner from my house. But we would like, because on the way to school we would buy drinks from the corner shop. I had a very like tight group of friends. It was just myself and like 3 others, which I will say, just in hindsight right now, it was me, a black guy, an Indian guy, a Chinese guy, and they were the only minorities in the entire school. So somehow, it's just sort of, I don't know how that happened. It wasn't a conscious decision. It just happened. But anyway, we would me and my racially friendly group of friends would detour through the forest. And there was a stream of water, and we would, whatever drink we had bought from the store on the way there, we would drop in the river and then chase it down the river to the end of the river to see whose bottle would win. And weirdly enough, the Oasis bottle, that's absolute like absolute dark horse. No one suspected the Oasis. In the end, we had to ban it. We were literally like, well, you can't have the Oasis bottle. The Oasis bottle always wins. Who'd have thought it? But you know, I do that, and I come into school, and you know, you go through the swamp. You smell like swamp. And so all the boys are like, "Oh, you posh dickhead," and the girls are like, "Ew, you smell like swamp." And I'm not offended because my brain is just not on this planet. Like they're like, you know, you smell like swamp, and I'm just like, it doesn't even register as a bad thing. Like I'm just thinking to myself, well, this bothers you. I don't know what to do about that. But you know, it's weird because I think I've said this before. Like I think like I was prone to bullying, and by that I mean being the bully. Because I've often said that there's sort of, you can get bullying, but there's another type called cry bullying, which is, you know, where you know how to get your way through pulling heartstrings and stuff like that. and like I was like quite a cute little yogurty blonde kid that a lot of the big kids did like to push around, and I sort of worked out a way to counterattack just by sort of being a bit of a manipulative fucker, to be honest with you. But it was always like a back and forth thing, you know. I don't mean like I ruled the school with my small yogurty looks. You know, there was always that back and forth, but I since sort of the autistic awakening, as it were, it's interesting looking back at that and looking back at some of the behaviors. Like I remember, I think I told this story before, but I remember there was a friend of mine at the time, and he was like, the weird thing is he wasn't like my best friend, but he was just like a friend I really liked. And this new kid came to school, and this new kid got along with this guy better than I did. And I didn't like that. But it's weird because I think it was more like, it's more like an impulsive OCD issue that like suddenly my friendship with this chap had altered, and like I didn't understand it. It was taking a while for my brain to catch up. But I was getting really salty with this new kid. And I remember, you know, I used to like, at one point I was like making fun of him for something. I can't remember what it was now. But I remember he was getting annoyed as the day was going on, you know. And then he snapped. And like, the weird thing is, even though it was a fight, an accident happened in the fight that made the fight look worse than it actually was. Like, I often think that the way the tensions were building between us anyway, I think whatever that fight should have been would have resolved the issue, which it did in the end, but there was a massive accident that confused the whole thing. Because he pushed me up against the wall. And the wall he pushed me up against had one of those, you know, those windows that like have like the little rod on it that you hold it open, it like goes on a peg sort of thing. Pushed me up against the wall, the peg came undone and the window slammed right there on my face. It was like to be honest, my nose has taken a sound beating in my life. Don't ask me how. It's been broken about 4 times. That's why if I look at you right now, you might notice it goes to the side a little bit. And actually, on cold days, I don't know what that bit's called. Excuse me, that bit there, on cold days, that goes white. I don't know what, you know, because of the cold, and lots of people assume that I have a bogey there, and they go, Giles, you've got a bogey there, and I'm like, no, my nose is just bent, you know. This window like landed on my face, and that was like the one time, you know, I was saying about using the cute yogurty Giles to my advantage. That was the one time that I couldn't control my powers, because I was actively telling every single adult that it was not his fault and that he did not do this because I was there. and you know, and like it was weird because he and we kind of bonded after that, because it was such a I felt really bad that no one would believe that he was innocent. You know, it was a fight, like kids fall out for whatever reason, and we had this horrible accident, and just no one listened to me because I was, you know, blue-eyed, blonde-haired little cutie. No, when I was sitting there, I mean, it looked terrible. Like my whole face was like swollen out and stuff, but his only intent, I think, you know, put me up against the wall to have a word with me, not to, you know, invert half of my face. But I remember, like, he was, because I was off school for like a week and stuff like that, and I really had to argue my point to not get him suspended. And like the first day back, the first day we saw each other, we shook hands. I felt like we were the adults here. Like I felt like so many people just like they wanted him condemned and they wanted me to hate him forever. But I feel like that the complication of that incident is kind of what's given me my opinion about bullies and bullying and what bullying is and all that sort of stuff. When you analyse the shit out of a situation like that, there's so much sort of innocence on both sides, guilt on both sides, and sort of you know, you sort of you realise that life is just, it's not a collection of heroes and villains. Like, heroes and villains are great for fiction and fantasy, but in reality, we don't, you know, it doesn't quite work out like that. But I don't know. It's weird because I sort of I think back to that a lot because of how much it taught me. And, you know, the opening anecdote that I was talking about in this video makes me think about that as well. How, you know, I don't want to say that that this Jim chap, that the YouTube chap is evil or horrible and stuff like that. But I also I'm not going to say that Tigger, the TikTok guy, he's not entirely innocent either, because you do get these people that they go south, they keep going south, and they don't get help. They can have that, you know, you can put it on a plate in front of them and they don't get help, and they continue being sour to other people. And then you think, well, what are we supposed to do? Because there is this issue of autism and unresolved autism, you know, undiagnosed, not even self-diagnosed. You know, I mean, I get concerned that, like, a lot of my long-term followers who followed me for absolutely years, who only piped up when I was doing something that they didn't like, have left this channel since I have been talking about autism. And these are some of the most autistic people on the fucking planet. And so, you know, it's literally like they detect it coming and they're like a sheep on an electric fence. They're just sort of like, well, I've been rumbled again. Like, better move on. You know, it's difficult because I think it's because, you know, they don't want to know that they're flawed, or that's how they feel it. You're not flawed, but that's how they receive it. They're sort of like, they don't want to feel like there's something wrong with them. But their life has been such a constant stream of stress because they don't understand what's going on. When in fact they kind of do understand what's going on. They just won't open the floodgates. And I know that because I've lived that. You know, like when I think back previously of things I've said or things that I've done that have led to sort of untoward behaviour, nasty behaviour, a lot of it has come right back down to this. It comes right back down to, I shan't say knowing what's going on. It's not like you know, you know. So like I think it's a very difficult thing, because I think when somebody does understand that they may be on the spectrum, it's quite a finite thing. I don't think it's I think once you understand it, you can't fully you can't sort of block it out. But I think people, they try and cut it off before it can be considered, if that makes any sense. Like, it's almost like it's almost like when you're trying to explain something complicated to somebody that has already assumed they don't understand it, so they don't listen to your explanation at all, because they don't want to hear what they're assuming they won't understand. And so if they don't let you talk at all, then they don't have to feel stupid. That's their logic in that moment. But you know, I think a lot of this stuff can lead to, you know, I think without diagnosis or without even a consideration, like the pin can spin off the record, to say the least. And the thing is, when I look back at some of the mental things I've done in my life, maybe I'll list them for you someday. But it makes a lot of sense, and a lot of it is just absolutely tearing through the pages, trying to find a resolution to the things you don't understand, the things that are confusing you so much because you keep on putting yourself in the same category as neurotypical people, and you're judging yourselves by that comparison. That frustrates a person. That can make a person mental. And, you know, in contrast to the rest of this video, that can make you a bully, because it can make you really angry with the world around you, and it can, but at that point you start taking your frustrations out on people, and you don't understand why. You don't understand what you're doing to them, and you don't understand what you're getting out of it. You know, like in instances of bullying, I have a firm belief that the bully needs more treatment than the victim. You know, like that, and I use that term bullying, but branding them a bully is no good. Because then they'll just look in the mirror after that, and they'll just see a bully. And if they're looking in the mirror and they're just seeing a bully, and they say, "I'm a bully," they're not going to think, maybe I have some other problem, maybe there's something else up with me, because they'll think my problem is that I'm a bully. They'll think that they've already got their answer when they just don't, you know? Oh dear. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, because before I get any more heated, and you know, when it goes on this long, I'm likely to tie myself up at some point. I don't know how much this hit home for you. It's definitely, obviously, it's a subject that's quite close to me. But yeah, I sort of, there's no sort of resolution to a lot of this sort of stuff. Excuse me, my voice is going. But like when I talk about that YouTuber, Jim, there's no, in my opinion, there's no point telling that to stop, because bullying is one of those things that gets worse the more you address it. And I know people don't like that, because it looks like I'm you know, turn a blind eye, and I don't mean turn a blind eye. I think the act needs to be ignored. The act needs to be ignored. The victim needs to be looked after. And the bully needs to be looked after. But the reason why I say the act needs to be ignored is because you can't drill it into the bully what they've done. Because what they've done is a product of something else. You know, like you're still addressing a symptom when you should be going for the cause, you know. Anyway, it's why I always say, like, you can't tell the internet to stop. That's the worst thing you can do. If you're ever in a bind and the internet comes after you for whatever reason, do not tell it to stop. It's the internet. Anyway, oh, this feels like quite a beefy one. So beefy that my voice is blown out. But that's my own fault. I was cooking sausages the other day, and I hadn't cleaned the pan properly, and got to the end of the cooking session, and I didn't realise that the entire room had filled up with black smoke. So I was like damaged from smoke inhalation, and my voice is still fucked. I will be more careful in the future. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, everyone. And I will talk to you guys very soon. See you later.